to you today. This week, we have been celebrating the day of Pentecost in the life of our church. I'm one of the pastors at First United Methodist Church in Round Rock, Texas. My name is Pat McCain, and thank you so much for joining us today. And as we looked at the day of Pentecost, we realized this is one of the strangest days in the history of the church. Rushing wind, tongues of fire, Google Translate happening spontaneously among the people. We read the story in Acts chapter 2, and I wanted to read a little bit of that to you today. When Pentecost Day arrived, they were all together in one place. Suddenly, a sound from heaven, like the howling of a fierce wind, filled the entire house where they were sitting. They saw what seemed to be individual flames of fire alighting on each of them. They were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other languages as the Spirit enabled them to speak. Well, this is a strange story, and as strange as it sounds, it was absolutely life-changing for the disciples. This day fulfilled Jesus' promise to them to send the Holy Spirit to be their companion and to fill their lives with his presence and his power. And they, as a result, began to live and love boldly in a way that was so radical that the entire known world at the time took notice. Their lives were changed forever because of that day. And I truly believe your life and mine can be changed as well by the presence of the Holy Spirit in our lives. This morning, I am wearing my Pacific Yacht Club shirt. And when Monica and I were living in Hawaii, she was part of the Pacific Yacht Club, and it sounds all fancy and so on, but actually there were no yachts involved, just some little small sailboats. And I loved hearing about Monica's story about sailing, and I thought this would be a really wonderful way for her and I to spend time together. So this past Sunday, I shared with our church my experience learning to sail and finally being out on the water with my bride. And it was really intended to be the most romantic time imaginable. We would sail out into the bay, out into the ocean, and experience the beautiful sunset together. And well, I had to be honest with you. It was not the most romantic time. It was actually disastrous for us because it was one of the most stressful moments and experiences of our marriage. And we finally had to realize that if we were going to go sailing together, we needed an instructor in the boat with us or somebody to drive the boat so we could gaze into each other's eyes like we really wanted to. Well, I learned a lot about sailing through that experience and learned a lot about marriage. And I learned a lot about wind. And one of the things about sailboats is that they have these beautiful sails attached to them. And without wind, sailboats are dead in the water. And if a sailboat does not raise its sails, even if the wind is blowing, it's not going to go anywhere. So one of the key lessons for learning to sail is to adjust your sails to capture the wind. And if you adjust your sails just right, no matter which way the wind is blowing, then even the slightest breeze will propel the boat forward and beautifully through the water. Well, I'm convinced that God's Spirit is blowing across our lives, and our responsibility is learning to adjust ourselves to be able to pay attention and to capture the breeze of God that's blowing across our souls and our beings. And some of the ways we do that is by simply trusting in a God who loves us, praying with an open heart and a heart full of faith, and maybe yielding to God's will in our lives. I'm convinced that if we learn to do this, that we can indeed experience a life transforming awareness and presence and power through the Holy Spirit in our lives. So, my prayer today for us is that we would notice the wind of God blowing across our lives. Maybe as we see the trees swaying in the wind in front of us, we're reminded that God is present and moving in our lives. Maybe as we feel the cool air coming from our air conditioner or from our fans, may it remind us that God's Spirit is blowing across our lives. Or maybe if we're outdoors and feel the gentle breeze upon our faces, may it remind us that God's Spirit is blowing across our lives. Has a beautiful dream for us, and He sent His Spirit to lead us in our lives deeper into His love for Him and certainly deeper into our love for each other. May we experience this week of Pentecost the breeze, the breath, the wind of God blowing across our lives. Come, Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit. You have a great day today. Thank you so much for joining me with this Facebook Live, YouTube Live. We're really grateful that you've chosen to journey with us. May God journey with you as well. Y'all have a wonderful day.